Every year, millions of people set resolutions. They promise themselves change, yet, within weeks, most fall back into the same patterns. Why? Because they try to build a new life on top of an old identity. The real problem is not the resolution. It's the person trying to live it. Every human being lives inside an invisible prison, and that prison is built from the past. It is constructed from the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we can do, and what we cannot do. From childhood, we collect experiences, some joyful, some painful, and from those experiences, we build an identity. We begin to believe we are the sum of our memories, the product of our environment, and the reflection of how others have treated us. This identity feels permanent, like something carved in stone, but in truth, it is a set of patterns, repeated so many times that we mistake them for who we are. When you wake up in the morning and immediately recall the stress of yesterday, you are already programming yourself to live as the same person again. The moment you check your phone, revisit your problems, or replay arguments in your mind, you are anchoring yourself back into an identity created by your past experiences. That identity carries the same habits, the same emotional reactions, the same thoughts, and the same limitations. You may want change, you may set goals, but as long as you are trying to change from within the same old identity, nothing new can truly emerge. The past self will always sabotage the future self. Breaking free from the old identity means recognizing that who you think you are is not who you really are. It requires the courage to step back and realize that the you who complains, who doubts, who fears, who procrastinates is only a rehearsed version of yourself, practiced day after day until it became automatic. The brain is a record of the past. Every memory you replay strengthens neural pathways that bind you to who you were. Every emotional reaction floods your body with the same familiar chemicals, creating a cycle where thought produces emotion, and emotion produces the same thought. That cycle is the identity loop, and unless you break it, your life will feel like a repeat of yesterday. Think about how many times you've said, "That's just the way I am." That statement is the voice of the old identity defending itself. I'm not disciplined. I always get anxious. I can never lose weight. These are not truths. They are agreements you've made with the past. And the more you repeat them, the more real they feel. Your identity is not written in your DNA. It is written in your habits of thought and emotion. It is a construction, not a destiny. The process of breaking free begins with awareness. You cannot change what you are unaware of. Start noticing how often your body reacts before your mind is even conscious of it. Notice how quickly irritation rises, how automatically you reach for your phone when bored, how instinctively you doubt yourself when facing something new. These are the reflexes of the old identity, not the authentic you. To rebuild yourself, you must interrupt these automatic programs. Imagine your old identity as a script you've been acting out for years. Every morning, you wake up, pick up the same role, speak the same lines, and feel the same emotions. To break free, you must put down that script and write a new one. But this requires energy, intention, and courage. The old identity is comfortable, even when it causes suffering, because it is familiar. The brain prefers the predictable, even if it is painful, because the predictable feels safe. But safe is the enemy of growth. There comes a moment when you must decide that being the same is more painful than becoming someone new. That moment is the threshold of transformation. At that point, you stop defending the old identity and begin dismantling it. Every time you choose not to indulge an old thought, you weaken the identity. Every time you refuse to act on a familiar emotional reaction, you are reclaiming your freedom. The more you do this, the more space you create for a new self to emerge. This is not about denying your past, but about refusing to be defined by it. Yes, your past shaped you, but it does not have to dictate your future. Every single time you choose to think differently, feel differently, and act differently, you are breaking the chains of the old self. The more consistent you are in this, the more your brain begins to rewire itself. Neurons that once fired together in the patterns of your old identity begin to weaken. New neural connections begin to form, supporting the birth of a new version of you. The key is to understand that identity is fluid. You are not fixed. You are not the story of your failures, or the echo of your traumas, or the shadow of your regrets. You are pure potential, waiting to be shaped by new thoughts, new feelings, and new choices. When you begin to see yourself not as a victim of circumstance, but as a creator of identity, the power shifts back into your hands. You realize that every moment you spend rehearsing the past is energy stolen from your future. And every moment you invest in imagining, feeling, and embodying a new self is energy invested in the creation of a life you have never lived before. Every transformation begins in the invisible world of the mind and the body. We often believe that our circumstances shape our lives, but in reality, it is the inner dialogue we repeat and the emotions we allow ourselves to feel that construct the lens through which we experience everything. Your thoughts and your emotions are not random. They are powerful forces that work together to create your state of being. And your state of being is what influences the choices you make, the actions you take, and ultimately, the reality you experience. A thought is more than a fleeting image in your head. It is an electrical signal in the brain, and every signal you fire strengthens the neural pathways associated with that thought. The more you think something, the easier it becomes to think it again. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not capable," your brain wires itself to fire that belief automatically. Over time, it becomes effortless to think thoughts of limitation, and nearly impossible to think thoughts of possibility. This is how the mind becomes a prison: through repetition, through chemistry, through the practice of negative thinking. But a thought on its own does not carry as much power as when it is combined with emotion. Emotion is the fuel that gives thought its magnetic pull. When you feel fear, anger, or doubt, those emotions charge your thoughts with energy, anchoring them into your body. The body does not distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. It reacts the same way to a fearful memory as it does to a real threat in front of you. That is why people can feel stressed even while sitting safely in their homes. The mind is projecting thoughts of danger, and the body is experiencing them as reality. This cycle of thought and emotion becomes a loop. A thought triggers an emotion, and the emotion reinforces the thought. For example, you think, "I'm not good enough." That thought produces the emotion of sadness or inadequacy. Feeling inadequate strengthens the thought, and soon it becomes an identity. Day after day, you unconsciously rehearse this loop until it becomes automatic. You don't even notice it happening anymore, because it feels natural. Yet what feels natural is often just what is familiar, not what is true. If thoughts and emotions can create suffering, they can also create freedom. The key lies in consciously aligning them with the future you desire instead of the past you fear. Every time you hold a vision in your mind of the person you want to become, and you allow yourself to feel the elevated emotions of gratitude, joy, or inspiration, you are teaching your body what that future feels like before it arrives. You are no longer waiting for circumstances to change in order to feel better. You are choosing to feel better first. This is the secret of transformation. You must feel the future before it becomes visible. When you generate emotions that match the life you want to live, you are signaling to your brain and body that this is your new reality. Over time, your body begins to believe it. Your subconscious mind, which runs most of your automatic behaviors, does not operate on logic, it operates on repetition and feeling. If you repeatedly think and feel in alignment with your vision, your subconscious begins to accept it as truth. And once the subconscious believes it, you naturally start acting in ways that bring that vision to life. Consider how powerful this is. Every thought you think is like a brushstroke painting the canvas of your future. Every emotion you embody colors that canvas with energy. If you constantly think thoughts of worry and feel emotions of fear, you are painting a future filled with obstacles. If you think thoughts of abundance and feel emotions of gratitude, you are painting a future filled with opportunities. You cannot separate your inner world from your outer world, because the outer world is only a reflection of what is consistently created within. The reason most people fail to rebuild themselves is that they try to change their behavior without changing their state of being. They make resolutions, set goals, and force themselves into new actions, but their thoughts and emotions remain trapped in the past. They are trying to create a new reality while feeling the same old feelings. And as long as the body is addicted to the emotions of the past, the mind will continue producing thoughts that justify those emotions. This is why change feels impossible for so many, because they are fighting against their own chemistry. The path forward is to reverse the loop. Instead of allowing old thoughts to trigger old emotions, you must consciously choose new thoughts and generate new emotions. This is not about pretending or faking positivity. It is about practicing until the new state of being becomes familiar. At first, it will feel unnatural to think empowering thoughts if you've spent years rehearsing doubt. It will feel strange to generate joy if your body is addicted to stress. But with repetition, what was once unnatural becomes the new normal. This practice requires discipline, because the old identity will always try to pull you back into the comfort of familiar suffering. The body will crave the chemicals of stress, and the mind will produce thoughts to justify those cravings. It will say, "You don't deserve happiness. This is pointless. Change isn't possible." But these are not truths. They are echoes of the past, defending their place in your life. When you recognize them for what they are and choose to return to your vision of the future, you are breaking the loop. You are reclaiming the power of thought and emotion. Every human being has a comfort zone, an invisible boundary created by the mind and the body to keep us feeling safe. It is not a physical place, but a state of familiarity. Inside this zone, we think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions, and take the same actions we always have. It feels stable because it is predictable. Yet predictability is not the same as growth. Predictability is the repetition of the past, and when you live only inside your comfort zone, you are rehearsing the same self again and again, never allowing the birth of something new. The comfort zone is seductive because it whispers promises of safety. It convinces you that staying where you are will protect you from failure, embarrassment, or disappointment. But in reality, it is not protecting you at all. It is imprisoning you. Nothing extraordinary has ever been created in the realm of the familiar. Every invention, every discovery, every transformation required stepping into the unknown, into the space where the outcome was uncertain. The comfort zone may feel secure, but it slowly drains life from your potential. It robs you of the future by chaining you to the past. To live beyond the comfort zone is to walk into the unknown willingly. It is to say yes to uncertainty and trust that your growth lies on the other side of fear. The brain is wired to prefer familiarity. It releases chemicals that reward predictability, even if the predictable pattern is destructive. That is why people return again and again to toxic habits, relationships, or routines. They may be painful, but they are known. Unknown possibilities trigger discomfort because the mind cannot control them. But it is precisely in this discomfort where transformation happens. Think about the moments in your life when you changed the most. They likely were not times of comfort. They were times when you were stretched, challenged, even afraid. Growth is born from pressure, just as a muscle must tear in order to grow stronger. The self must step into discomfort in order to expand. The fear you feel when you consider taking a new step is not a sign to retreat. It is evidence that you are touching the edge of your old self. And the edge of your old self is where your new self begins. The comfort zone is ruled by habits. These habits might look harmless: checking your phone every morning before you breathe, scrolling when you feel lonely, eating to soothe the stress, staying silent instead of speaking your truth. But each small habit reinforces the identity of the old self. To move beyond the comfort zone, you must become aware of these habits and challenge them. Every time you act differently, even in a small way, you stretch the boundary of the comfort zone. It is not about making a single giant leap into the unknown. It is about consistently leaning into it until it becomes your new normal. When you step outside the familiar, your body will protest. You might feel anxiety, restlessness, or resistance. These sensations are not signs that you are doing something wrong. They are signs that your old self is dissolving. The body is addicted to the chemical signals of the familiar emotions you've rehearsed for years. When you try to replace stress or doubt with confidence, your body resists because it craves what it knows. This is where most people retreat. They confuse discomfort with danger and step back into the comfort zone. But if you persist, if you allow yourself to remain in the discomfort without retreating, your body begins to adapt. What once felt terrifying becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes natural. Living beyond the comfort zone is about surrendering control. In the familiar, you already know the outcome. In the unknown, there is no script, and that is what makes it powerful. In the unknown, you are free to imagine, to create, to become. The comfort zone keeps you tied to who you were yesterday. The unknown gives birth to who you can be tomorrow. Each time you choose the unknown over the familiar, you are signaling to your brain and body that you are no longer living as your past self. You are rehearsing a new future with every step into uncertainty. It takes courage to remain in the unknown because the mind will search for certainty. It will try to predict outcomes, invent problems, or generate fear to pull you back. But courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the willingness to move forward, even while fear is present. And when you act with courage repeatedly, fear loses its power. Your comfort zone expands, and suddenly, what once felt threatening feels ordinary. This is how transformation unfolds. Not in a single leap, but in the gradual reshaping of what you consider familiar. The unknown is not empty. It is a field of infinite possibility, waiting to respond to your state of being. When you step into it with fear, you recreate the past. But when you step into it with intention, vision, and elevated emotion, you begin to magnetize experiences that align with the self you are becoming. The unknown mirrors back the energy you bring into it. This is why embracing the unknown is essential for rebuilding yourself. You cannot create a new life from inside the prison of familiarity. You must walk into the unpredictable and trust that the process itself will shape you. Every step beyond the comfort zone is an act of creation. It is the destruction of the old and the emergence of the new. It is where you stop living as a victim of circumstance and begin living as the author of your life. The comfort zone will always call you back, with its promise of safety. But you must remember that safety is an illusion. True life begins where comfort ends. Rebuilding yourself is not something that happens by chance. It does not unfold because a new calendar year arrives or because you wish for it hard enough. Transformation requires design, and design requires intention. The person you want to become will not appear out of the routines of the past. They must be consciously created, envisioned in detail, and rehearsed until the mind and body begin to embody that version of you. Intention is the blueprint of the new self, the guiding principle that directs thought, emotion, and action toward a vision of what has not yet materialized, but already exists in possibility. Most people live their lives by default, not by design. They wake up each morning and immediately return to the script of yesterday. Their thoughts run on autopilot. Their emotions follow the same patterns, and their actions become predictable. Without realizing it, they are recycling their past into their present and projecting it into their future. They are not designing a new life, they are reliving an old one. To create change, you must step out of this unconscious cycle and begin to live deliberately. That is the power of intention. It pulls you out of the unconscious patterns of yesterday and directs you toward the conscious creation of tomorrow. Designing a new self begins with clarity. You must ask yourself not just what you want to achieve, but who you want to become. This is more than setting goals. Goals are external markers. Money, status, health, relationships, they are outcomes. But the new self is not defined by outcomes alone. It is defined by a way of being. Who do you want to be when you wake up each morning? How does this version of you walk, speak, think, and feel? When you close your eyes, can you see yourself living that way? Not as a distant dream, but as a reality you are already stepping into. The mind does not know the difference between imagination and a vision is vivid, and the emotion is strong. Neuroscience shows that when you repeatedly imagine an action with intention and feeling, your brain begins to wire itself as if you are already living that reality. The same is true for your body. When you feel gratitude, joy, or confidence for the life you are designing, even before it arrives, you are conditioning your nervous system to accept that life as normal. You are no longer waiting for evidence in the outer world. You are generating evidence in your inner world first. This is how intention becomes creation. The old self is sustained by unconscious repetition. The new self is born from conscious rehearsal. Each time you imagine the person you want to be with clarity and elevate your emotions to match that vision, you are firing new neural circuits and creating new chemical states in the body. You are teaching your mind and body a new future. Over time, these rehearsals carve pathways in the brain, making it easier and easier to think, feel, and act as the new self. What begins as deliberate practice eventually becomes automatic. And when it becomes automatic, you know you have truly changed. Intention is more than mental focus. It is alignment of thought and emotion. Many people set intentions in their minds, but contradict them with their feelings. They say, "I will be successful," while feeling unworthy. They declare, "I will be confident," while embodying fear. The contradiction between thought and emotion cancels the power of intention. To design a new self, you must bring thought and emotion into coherence. You must think the thought of success while feeling the gratitude and excitement of already being successful. You must think the thought of health while feeling the energy and vitality of already being healthy. When thought and emotion align, intention becomes magnetic. The process of designing a new self is also about embodying the vision in small, daily choices. It is not enough to hold the picture in your mind. You must live as if it is already true. Ask yourself throughout the day, what would my new self do in this moment? Would they complain or express gratitude? Would they procrastinate or take action? Would they react with anger or respond with calm presence? Every choice is an opportunity to cast a vote for the person you are becoming. The more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. At first, this requires discipline because the old self will resist. It will try to pull you back into familiar habits, emotions, and thoughts. But discipline gradually transforms into freedom. What begins as effort becomes natural over time, and the vision of your new self begins to feel more real than the memories of your old self. That is the turning point when you no longer need to force yourself into change, but simply live as the person you have designed. Intention also requires consistency. You cannot design a new self once and expect it to stick. Just as a building is not constructed from a single sketch, but from repeated attention to the blueprint. Your new identity is built through daily alignment with your vision. The more you revisit the vision, feel the emotions of it, and act as if it is already real, the faster your brain and body accept it as truth. Over time, the outer world begins to mirror the inner world. Opportunities, people, and experiences show up that match the vibration you've been rehearsing internally. This is not coincidence. It is the natural law of alignment between your state of being and your reality. Designing a new self through intention is the act of becoming the architect of your life. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change you, you change yourself first, and circumstances adjust in response. Instead of living as a reflection of your past, you live as a reflection of your vision. The new self is not something that arrives in the future. It is something you create in the present, moment by moment, choice by choice, thought by thought, emotion by emotion, as you make in silence when no one is watching. To rebuild yourself, you must understand that consistency is not simply a discipline. It is the very foundation of transformation. Think about how your old identity was created. It was not built in a single day. It was constructed through years of repeated thoughts, emotions, and actions. Every time you replayed a memory of failure, you strengthened the neural pathways of doubt. Every time you allowed anger or fear to control you, you reinforced those emotional states in your body. Every time you acted in the same way, you rehearsed the same identity. Consistency is how your old self was built, and consistency is also how your new self will be created. Most people underestimate the power of small actions done repeatedly. They look for massive change and overlook the quiet strength of daily practice. But the truth is that small actions accumulate. A single drop of water means little, but drops repeated over time can carve valleys through stone. In the same way, a single meditation, a single act of courage, or a single moment of gratitude may feel insignificant. Yet when practiced consistently, they begin to reshape your brain, recondition your body, and rewrite your identity. Consistency requires presence. It demands that you show up for your vision every single day, even when you do not feel like it. The old self will always try to return, pulling you back into familiar habits and emotions. If you are not consistent, the old self will win. But each time you choose to align with the new self despite resistance, you weaken the grip of the old identity and strengthen the foundation of the new one. This is not about perfection, it is about persistence. Even when you fall, consistency means you rise again and return to your vision. There is a rhythm to transformation, and consistency is the beat that keeps it alive. The brain changes through repetition. Neural pathways are strengthened through repeated firing, and the body learns through repeated feeling. If you only practice new thoughts and emotions occasionally, they remain weak signals. But when you practice them daily, they become your new baseline. What once felt unnatural begins to feel familiar. What once required effort becomes automatic. This is how you know you are transforming, when the new self feels more natural than the old one. Consistency is also a test of commitment. Anyone can set an intention at the beginning of a new year, fueled by excitement and motivation. But motivation fades. Life brings challenges. The enthusiasm of a fresh start dwindles. It is in those moments that consistency matters most. True change is measured not by what you do when you feel inspired, but by what you do when you feel tired, distracted, or doubtful. If you can remain faithful to your vision when it is hardest to believe in it, you prove to yourself that you are no longer living as the old self. This process requires patience. Transformation is not a quick transaction, it is a gradual unfolding. The old self is dismantled piece by piece, while the new self is constructed brick by brick. Impatience is the enemy of consistency because it convinces you that if results are not immediate, the effort is wasted. But every moment you choose differently, even if you see no external evidence yet, you are planting seeds. The roots are growing beneath the surface long before you see the first sprout. And when the breakthrough comes, it will appear sudden to others, but you will know it was the product of countless invisible repetitions. Consistency also builds trust within yourself. Many people do not change because, deep down, they do not trust themselves to follow through. They have made promises before and broken them. They have set goals and abandoned them. This erodes self-trust and convinces them that change is impossible. But consistency rebuilds that trust. Each time you show up for yourself, even in small ways, you prove that you can be relied upon. Slowly, you begin to believe in your ability to change, and that belief fuels even greater consistency. To be consistent is to live as the new self before the world recognizes it. It is to rehearse the identity you are becoming, not once, not occasionally, but continuously. Each day, you recommit to your vision. Each day, you return to the practice. And over time, those repetitions compound into transformation. The old self dissolves not through force, but through neglect, as it is no longer fed with thought, emotion, or action. The new self emerges through nourishment as it is consistently reinforced until it becomes your reality. The most extraordinary transformations often look ordinary in the moment. Waking up early to meditate, writing down intentions, choosing gratitude instead of complaint, acting with courage instead of fear. These daily decisions may seem small, but they are the building blocks of the future self. Consistency is not glamorous, but it is sacred. It is the proof that you are no longer living as a prisoner of the past, but as a creator of the future. Rebuilding yourself is not about waiting for life to hand you a better future. It is about consciously creating one from the inside out. You cannot step into a new year carrying the weight of an old identity. To transform, you must break free from the patterns that no longer serve you. Release the stories that keep you chained to the past and open yourself to the possibility of who you can become. Your thoughts and emotions are not trivial. They are the building blocks of your reality. Every time you align what you think with how you feel, you are shaping your state of being. And your state of being is the signal you send out into the field of possibility. If you continue to think as the old self, you will only repeat the past. But if you think and feel as the new self, you draw that future toward you. The journey requires stepping into the unknown, beyond the safety of the comfort zone. Growth does not exist in the familiar, it exists where you have never been before. Each time you move past fear and into uncertainty, you are expanding your boundaries, discovering strength and potential that were always hidden inside you. This is why intention matters. You must design the self you want to become, see it in your mind, feel it in your body, and live as if it is already real. Intention is the blueprint, and your daily choices are the construction. Every thought, every action, every emotion is either casting a vote for your old self or for the new self you are creating. And the glue that holds it all together is consistency. Not what you do once in a while, not what you practice when it's convenient, but what you commit to every single day. Rebuilding yourself is not an event, it is a practice. With each consistent choice, you weaken the past and strengthen the future, until the new self is not something you are chasing, but something you are embodying. This year is not asking you to set resolutions that fade away with time. It is asking you to rebuild yourself from the inside out, to become someone you have never been before, and to live a life you have never known. The power is within you, waiting to be activated by thought, fueled by emotion, stretched beyond comfort, guided by intention, and made real through consistency.